I've agreed with Bill Maher more times than not. I respect his ability to piss off the right people and the left ones too. But there's a huge difference between being provocative and being pathetic. In the past, I have rightfully been critical of Joe Scarborough when he chose to bleach the ring of Donald Trump. I called it out then for what it was: groveling horseshit dressed up as pragmatism. We could easily lay all of that blame solely on the hosts for having done that, but even though they had a history of calling Trump an authoritarian fascist and repeating that even his new vice president calls him America's Hitler, they deliberately chose to go down to Mar-a-Lago and bump elbows with the man. Could you imagine if Paul Reynaud of France was like, I get it, he is the worst dictator Europe has ever seen, but I think it would behoove me to enjoy some pancakes with him because I need to get a read for the man. No, because they knew damn well what they were dealing with. None of my viewers would dare look into the enclosure of a Komodo dragon at a zoo, fully aware of its nature, and having tons of time watching Komodo dragon documentaries and then think to themselves, you know, the only way I can really get to know if it's going to bite my whole ass off is if I try to shake its hand. Their excuses never made sense, and the lectures thereafter forced me to stop watching them altogether. However, there's a new candidate in the ring and champion vying for the Van Jones Crying Award for bitch-ass genuflection, and that man is Bill Maher. Now, before you hear all of that and think, wow, this guy really doesn't like him, let me try to clear things up a bit. I watched Bill Maher back when he was on Politically Incorrect. My mom used to watch it, and I would laugh along and got a feel for political comedy then with him and an early Jon Stewart. Maher has long championed free thought, hard truths, and brutal honesty, even when I didn't agree. I respected the spine because we didn't really have a lot of people who could do it like Carlin as far as holding up a mirror to the powers that be. Frankly, I only see Bill Burr taking that mantle while everyone else is standing in Carlin's long shadow. While he often leaned more libertarian than progressive, I would watch Bill Maher because we all had a common enemy, or so I thought. Recently, as many of you know, Bill Maher went down and did exactly as Joe and Mika did, but maybe even a little worse. He actually carried water for the guy openly. And immediately thereafter, he came back glorifying Trump's ability to have charm. He used his opening monologue to wax poetic about how Trump behind the scenes is not the Trump that the rest of us know, which, if I may, already comes off super pretentious, that we, the proletariat, will never know the real true side of the king. I don't want to get to know because no matter who he is not who he really is. And that's really the point. Trump has spent his entire life as a narcissist who mingles with the rich and famous. If you can't gather that the whole game isn't to lather on the charm and get you to like him, then you're equally as narcissistic. Going to Mar-a-Lago to talk to a man who is actively threatening democracy, who's responsible for real measurable harm, and treating him like a misunderstood uncle at Thanksgiving, that's not nuance. That's negligence. I don't agree with Bill Maher on a lot, but I enjoy some of his work. His religious documentary was amazing. It's also where I gained a respect for the man because he was seen going around the world and getting with charismatic, powerful people and calling their bullshit out to their faces. It was awesome. He also created an HBO show called Real Time where he has a panel of people who agree and disagree with him, and they have discussions about current events and politics. Some of his New Rules segments were hysterical. He spent a career in the limelight demonstrating that he isn't afraid to punch up and speak truth to power. You can't claim to be a truth teller and then soften the image of a man who's already used propaganda, intimidation, and policy to tear people down. There's no thoughtful reason to platform that in any way, shape, or form. And if you claim to be the guy who cuts through the bullshit, then cut through it. Don't shake hands with it and come back with a signed copy of your insults of him like it's a trophy. That wasn't spine, that was showbiz cowardice. Unfortunately, though, I feel like that is where we are at this point. With his recent strong and unwavering support for Israel and entire religious state, which is a concept he has admittedly lambasted throughout his career, to this weird obsession with what he calls woke, which is a red flag in itself. When a boomer is throwing the word around woke, unironically, get ready to hear about bootstraps and personal responsibility. This man has gone from an unapologetic progressive voice in a rather conservative world to a curmudgeon who uses his platform to bitch and moan about the next kid who happens to step in his yard. And don't get me started on his position when it comes to transgender topics. The man has taken what he calls skepticism and turned it into a full-fledged machine of mistruths and logical fallacies. The guy's actually said that puberty blockers and other gender-affirming care was, quote, literally experimenting on children. Even being nice, that kind of rhetoric only serves to harm transgender youth. It puts real kids in actual danger. He'll also demand people have medical degrees to challenge his positions, which he has backed by exactly no medical degrees. He's also implied that it was because it was trendy to switch genders, which again, not to sound out of pocket, but what does a single 70-year-old with no kids nor interest in having them and who has spent his entire career professionally complaining know anything about what is and isn't trendy? You know what? I retract my statements. Fuck Bill Maher. He isn't a voice of truth. He's a cranky bitch who needs to recognize that he has 2 ears and 1 mouth, so maybe he should consider listening twice as much as he speaks. Unfortunately, as old dogs normally don't learn new tricks, I'm going to hope that he can actually do some real hard reflection and find out who he is and wants to be remembered as. 20 years after Maher has shit the bed, what will the world say of him? Will his legacy be that of some dude who revealed a true selfish narcissism as more important than the democratic norms of the Western world? Or a man who was willing to receive an offer to dine and bump elbows with Ku Klux Ham and respond by telling him to go fuck himself? You can't challenge an establishment by asking if it needs its shoes polished. At this point, I think he should probably change the name of his show from Real Time to Pastime. Anyway, if you dig the content, make sure to like and consider subscribing and hit that notification bell. Tell me what you think of Bill Maher in the comments section below, because I've seen this as a rather contentious topic amongst liberals. Hit me up with your personal take, because I actually try to read and react to all of them. So until next time, fellow nerds, y'all come back now. You hear?